Hello, my name is Professor Stefan Schmidt, Professor of Political Science. There was a discussion recently about violent video games. I don't know if you like to play video games, but and a professor was saying that he has done a lot of that seems to show that children who play a lot of violent video games also behave more aggressively, that their level of personal, sort of interpersonal violence is higher. They're more intense and seem, more energetic, maybe is the right word to call it. And I guess my own personal view is that I doubt if video games are all that important in increasing the level of violence. The reason I say that is I grew up in a country that has a very violent society. There's a lot of shootings and massacres, and people have been displaced from their homes. And I grew up there, and there were no video games at all. There were a few old pinball machines, where you put in money and the ball comes down and then you push and you try to keep the ball from falling in a hole. Those games are not violent. And there were very few movies even, so there were very few violent movies that could have made children violent. What there was in my country was a lot of violence in the villages and cities and towns. There were a lot of people killed and murdered and shot because the country was in a civil war for many, many years. And the level of violence in society became very high, one of the highest in the world, without any video games ever being available to children. So my guess is that in a country like that, if you introduce violent video games, it would not have much of an impact on anything. It would not increase violence anymore. Probably wouldn't reduce it either. So I'd like to see more research on it, because I myself am somewhat skeptical of the notion that it is video games that produce violence in real life. It may be that children who watch violent video games are more aggressive and have a tendency to sort of be more violent in a virtual kind of way. But even in the United States, I wonder if the neighborhoods and streets of American cities, where life is very violent, where people are shot and there are a lot of drive-by shootings and other acts of violence, people are murdered and so on, whether the people who are committing those crimes play a lot of violent video games, or whether those are just violent neighborhoods where real life is violent, so children learn about violence, carrying guns, protecting themselves, and joining gangs because it's necessary for them to survive, rather than being the consequence of violent video games. That's my opinion. It's an interesting subject.